Hello, my name is Payton and I'm here with Jenessa and Shelby, and welcome to Grade 5 Social Studies. Today we are going to be talking about Canadian national parks.
So before we get started, we are just going to do a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that we are residing on Treaty 7 territory, which is traditional to the Blackfoot, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda peoples. We acknowledge that First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people have lived on these lands and express gratitude for the knowledge and kindness they provide. As we live and learn on this land, we are committed to working towards reconciliation and building meaningful relationships through action.
Today we are going to be talking about what a national park is, parks you may have seen, the history of national parks, why they are important, and how national parks affect sustainability and the environment.
So a national park is a scenic and historically important area that is protected by the federal government for wildlife protection and public enjoyment. The federal government is the government that is in charge of all of Canada, around 25 million people visit the national parks every year.
So Canada has 37 national parks and 10 national park reserves. A national park reserve is different because it is designated to become a national park, but is currently resolving issues related to land claims. To explain a little more about land claims, they seek to address wrongs made against Indigenous peoples, their rights and lands by the federal, provincial, or territorial governments, and this is cited in the Canadian Encyclopedia.
30 regions are currently represented by national parks and national park reserves, and some regions contain more than one park. There are 9 regions in Canada that are not yet represented. So as you see in the picture here, each tree represents a different national park. There are some areas you see that don't have many national parks, and that just means that they are one of the 9 that are unrepresented.
So here are some national parks that you might be familiar with.
So, what makes these areas so historically important and in need of being protected?
Well, we can answer that question as soon as we address the history of national parks, why they are created.
Yeah, so the first national park was established in 1885 by the first Prime Minister of Canada, Sir John A. Macdonald, who is in this picture on our slideshow. He claimed the land for public enjoyment and to increase the use of the Canadian Pacific Railway. And this first national park is in what is now known as Banff.
First Nations had used the hot springs before the arrival of colonists in the area. The first settlers to come across the springs were 3 CPR employees working on the construction of the first transcontinental railway through the Rocky Mountains in 1883. Rather than grant private title to the lands to individuals or companies, the federal government decided that the hot springs should be preserved for the use of all Canadians. And as you see, this was the hot springs in 1883, and these are them current day.
So Indigenous people were unfortunately banned from national parks and prohibited from hunting and gathering on these lands, which they traditionally used. Indigenous peoples were forced to leave their homes and relocate if they were located in the national parks. As the Ojibwe left the Riding Mountain National Park, park wardens set fire to their homes. This was not an isolated incident, as many First Nations were forced to leave their homes and relocate.
So now that we know more about the history of national parks, why are they important? So first of all, national parks are important because they protect wildlife from human impact and destruction, and they also provide a safe place for animals to survive and reproduce.
National parks help protect places of natural beauty by not allowing people to use and abuse the land. National parks also help protect the land, which is essential to First Nations people.
National parks also help with the conservation of biodiversity and help the environment by providing clean water and fresh air.
All of these things are important for the sustainability of Canada's natural environment.
Sustainability is our responsibility to protect natural resources, the land, and the wildlife now and in the future.
National parks are protected by the Canadian Park Act, established by the federal government. Parks Canada was established in 1911 and was the world's first national park service.
In the parks, the land and water are classified into 5 different zones. The zones are classified according to how fragile they are and if they're able to accommodate visitors or not. This means that some national parks are just for protection of nature and we actually can't go visit them.
So as we see on the screen here are some examples of different zones, restricted access. So that just means the areas that have red, for example, means that you cannot go in these zones. The Federal Species at Risk Act helps with the protection and recovery of endangered species, also known as SARA.
National parks are funded in order to help protect the environment. One way they are funded was through the Nature Legacy for Canada. This investment is from the government and they contributed $221 million in 2018 to 2021. The Government of Canada budgeted an additional $2.3 billion in support over the 5 years.
So a total of $4.2 billion was budgeted from the federal government from the years 2015 to 2022 to protect and restore significant pieces of property in the national parks and national historic sites.
Other grants and contributions to Parks Canada include the National Cost Sharing Program for Heritage Places, which in 2020 to 2021 contributed to the conservation and preservation of national historic areas. Also, the General Class Grants and Contributions Program fund a wide variety of third-party projects with the goal to preserve, protect, and present nature, advance Indigenous reconciliation, and others. This grant is generally small in comparison to the other ones.
About 25% of the park's budget comes from revenue. This is the money that national parks make from public visiting. It comes from entry fees, camping fees, property rent, businesses, and concessions. National parks are allowed to take the money that they make from visitors and invest it right back into the national park.
So now that we know all about national parks, in summary, why do we have them? National parks have a great significance to our natural heritage. Natural heritage is an area of land that holds significance for habitats of certain species of plants and animals and provides opportunities for scientific research, conservation, and natural resources and enjoyment of the natural beauty.
National parks help the economy, provide jobs, and increase tourism in Canada. National parks provide learning experiences for Canadians by educating them on Canada's diverse land and the importance of protecting it.
National parks work to slow down the negative impacts that humans have on land. They help to restore degraded ecosystems and protect the resources. National parks also help against natural disasters such as landslides, avalanches, and reduce flooding.
All right, so we would just like to thank you for listening to our presentation and learning about national parks with us. We just want to leave you with one question to ponder. So are national parks offering enough protection of the land in Canada?